Hi there, I wanted to talk about why people buy aluminum boats. First of all, it's the number one choice for government and commercial users in that 20 to 65 foot range. That's primarily because aluminum has a higher strength to weight ratio than other boat building materials like fiberglass or steel. Um, in fact, all welded boats can weigh up to 30% less than fiberglass boats. This is particularly true in smaller boats, 25 feet and under. Maybe not so much when it gets to the larger cabin cruiser models in that 30, even upwards to the 50-foot plus range. And frankly, aluminum can survive impacts that neither steel or fiberglass. Well, another reason why people buy aluminum boats is that, frankly, it's due to the elasticity of the aluminum. You see, if you have a heavy impact, you hit a rock or a submerged object, or maybe crash into another boat on the water, aluminum tends to dent and spread that force of impact over a wide area, where steel tends to simply crack and fracture. And frankly, fiberglass just has virtually no elasticity. It just tends to crack on heavy impacts. Another interesting point is that fiberglass boats, once they've had an impact, they can become subject to the blistering and osmosis. The gel coat on the outside of the fiberglass can allow water to wick through. So it's just another reason why a lot of commercial users tend to use aluminum, and more recreational boaters for that matter. Another big reason why people choose aluminum, frankly, is it's just a lot easier and it can be a lot less expensive to repair than fiberglass. If you do manage to have an impact and maybe dent your boat, well, you might just be able to pound the dent out of an aluminum boat. Or if something really bad has happened and you've actually managed to puncture the hull, you can simply weld a patch on the outside of an aluminum boat, and it'll get you under the way for the rest of the boating season. And also, it's fairly easy to repair metals and bring them back to a like new status. Hey, maybe you've damaged your car before and you've just been amazed at the bodywork that can be done. Well, similar types of things can be done on aluminum boats. Another interesting thing is that modern fiberglasses, even though they're treated with a fire retardant, once they ignite, they burn vigorously. We maybe have all seen those news clips where someone at the marina has had their boat just burn and sink and maybe take a few other boats out along with it. Well, aluminum boats just aren't as susceptible to that kind of damage in the event of a fire. So it's certainly something to consider. Another thing is aluminum, it just doesn't absorb water. A few seconds ago I mentioned about that blistering and osmosis that can happen in fiberglass boats. Well, it's actually gel coat, that thin layer of gel coat on the exterior of a hull is what makes a fiberglass boat waterproof. Fiberglass itself isn't waterproof. It's that shiny coating on the outside that basically seals your hull and prevents the water from coming in. If you've had a mistake when you're loading your boat on your trailer, or maybe you've grounded on the beach, you can damage that exterior coating, and you'll get water that eventually starts to wick its way into your hull. Aluminum also doesn't rot and it doesn't rust. We've all heard of rotten old boats. Well, aluminum, hey, it can sit out in the elements for years and it just stands up fine. Here's an interesting thing that I learned about, and that was when aluminum is placed in the atmosphere and oxygen gets to it, a thin layer known as aluminum oxide forms on the surface, which acts like a protective, airtight, watertight, corrosion-resistant shield. Another interesting fact is that the Aluminum Company of America conducted a 30-year test on the 5000 series alloy. 5000 series alloy is maybe the most popular alloy that most aluminum boat builders use. And what they did is they submerged it in the salt water near Narragansett Bay, and they left it there for over 30 years. Now, of course, they checked it on a regular basis, but at the end of a 30-year period, they basically ended the test because nothing was happening to the aluminum. Now, you might say, hey, Aluminum boats can too corrode. My aluminum outdrive on my engine has corroded when I've left it in the salt water. What's the deal? Well, fact of the matter is that most corrosion issues can be traced back to either poor wiring in the boat, improper use of alloys, or galvanic corrosion. Most of these issues can be managed fairly easily, if not eliminated altogether. So what are a couple downsides of aluminum? Well, maybe one of the biggest downsides is that it's quite difficult to shape. You see, aluminum boat builders buy their metal in flat sheet stock, and it's just hard to form into nice curved compound angles to provide nice flares and upswept bows on offshore boats that can make the ride a little drier, a little nicer, and it's also a little hard to form into those interesting shapes for in cuddy cabins and around windshields that can help add appeal and maybe maximize the interior space of a boat. A couple other downsides to aluminum when it comes to design constraints is that frankly aluminum can be a little less comfortable when it comes to the heat or cold weather. No matter what anyone tells you, metal is more thermally conductive than fiberglass. Now there are some things that boat builders can do to help keep boats more comfortable. They'll put foam below deck to help insulate it from the cooler water in northern climates. They'll line the hull sides and interiors of cabin with paneling or carpet and put liner on the roofs of cabins, and certainly can do quite a bit to keep them more comfortable. But they're just not quite as good as fiberglass when it comes to keeping you either cool in hot climates or warm in cold climates. If you ever stepped on a bare aluminum deck in the heat, you know how hot it can get. Another thing is that a lot of aluminum boats might be not painted and be a raw hull. Well, that's not very pleasing to everyone, and in fact, if you spend a lot of time in the boat and you're touching a lot of surfaces, you can get black hands and just not very nice. So a lot of boat builders will paint their hulls, and that's great. It adds curb appeal. It makes them a lot more pleasant to be in. But if that same painted hull is in a saltwater environment, it can be a little difficult to maintain the surfaces. The paint can deteriorate over time, and if there's been holes drilled through for snaps and fittings on the hull, sometimes the salt can wick between the aluminum and the paint and cause it to bubble and so on. So there's just a few things to think about if you're getting an aluminum boat. Personally, I love them. I don't think I'd have anything else, but I hope this was helpful for you. Thank you.